Dr. Dhawan, we saw that in December, at least for the first 14-15 days, we had better air quality, which has since now, completely dipped into severe plus category.
Absolutely.
The reason has been attributed to meteorological conditions. But why does that, Delhi vulnerable to it and not other places? What makes this geography especially vulnerable to air pollution?
See, Delhi is a unique city. And come November, we start blaming parali burning, which constitute a very small component of air pollution. It's something like that. You are a sugar patient, so therefore you can't afford even 1 teaspoon additional of sugar, and that is what Delhi is, that there is already pollution and therefore stubble burning adds to it. But then there are so many other factors associated with it. It's a sort of airlock city. And what happens, especially during this season, let's look at the way the temperature had dropped in last few days. It was all of a sudden. And again, what happens is that, if you remember what happened last 2 weeks, there was air flowing. It was very pleasant, wind flowing and nice. And now it's absolutely calm. And with the result, what happens is that whatever the pollutants are there, they get trapped in the air. They don't settle down. And with the result, it causes pollution. And your the levels of AQI, it gets from bad to severe and perhaps not livable city any longer. It's like that. And also what happens, let's look at the number of vehicles on the road. Today there is ban on diesel vehicles, but still it's traffic jam on many roads. So we cannot, the carrying capacity for transport sector, we really can't afford that. And although we are shifting to electric vehicles, but still the number of vehicles which are running on petrol is very high. You look at the cars, most of the cars will have a driver and perhaps one person. So what we really need to work out, first of all, do we have adequate greenery? Can we think of something like what Beijing had done in the past as green wall? Can we think of mass transportation? Can we think of shared taxi kind of a concept? Because the biggest problem is that we have introduced metro. But where is the last mile connectivity? So my colleagues who use metro, they're always stuck. Like, what do I do from the metro station? And they'll tell me that the auto driver tells them to give 100 rupees. So therefore it actually becomes expensive for them to come by metro and rather than using their own car. So therefore, unless and until we do the planning properly, and again where we lack is we start thinking about air pollution starting from month of October. And after February, we feel that
everything is
God will take care of it next year, which is not going to be the case. So it's everything right from plantation to how do we manage traffic. We have to do, or rather we have already done apportionment studies. So which apportionment is that what portion comes from what. Look at the construction activities. So although the construction activities, we have put a full stop, but then all your building material is lying there and it's flowing in the air. So it is causing pollution. And let's realize it's going to continue. Infrastructure building will continue for next few years. So how do we treat that? How do we ensure that it is not impacting you and I? How do I keep it wet? How do I build those walls so that these particles, they are not in the air?
Like you mentioned about stubble burning, and yes, whenever October, November comes, stubble burning is being blamed for, the worsening air quality. But TERI came out with a 2021 emission inventory where you highlighted how in Delhi it's the vehicles which comprise the major polluters, and in the larger NCR area it's the construction activities. Since 2021 till now, do you think the main sources of pollution have changed, or are they still the same?
they're more or less the same. And that is what I said.
Yeah.
Stubble burning, if you see at the on the yearly basis, it hardly contributes anything. But then during few days, and as I mentioned to you, because that's the time it's the onset of winter. And therefore, it is something like that, it's already high and we can't afford any more.
Yeah.
And during few days, it is that it actually contributes to it. And because see, if you remember what happened in November and what is happening to the air today, there is a slight difference.
What is the difference?
And that difference is how we perceive that, or what is happening to us.
Okay.
In the month of November, because of stubble burning, you always had a sort of smell that something is burning, which is not the case today. Today it is basically that you have these pollutants in the air, the small particles in the air. So there is a slight difference in the pollutants. The nature, and I am repeatedly saying, the culprit is not stubble burning. It is culprit for few days. It is more of construction activities.
Right.
And even if you stop construction, somewhere it is your building material or the half-ready buildings, they will also keep on contributing to the pollution.
Right.
And vehicles, okay, you have ban. First of all, the ban is on diesel vehicles.
Yeah.
But diesel vehicles for your own use, private use. But then those cars which are in public domain, they are running.
Yeah.
And therefore, if I have to travel to office by car and I can't drive my own, I'll simply call for a car.
Yeah.
So does it making any difference?
No.
Very little. So what we need to do is, first of all, we need to improve the public transportation system. We have to come out with innovative ideas. And of course, many countries in the world, they'll put a taxation if you're driving alone. You drive, but you have to pay tax because you're polluting the environment. The other is that they also have, like even developed economies like United States, there are few roads where they feel the traffic is very high. You cannot drive alone.
Okay.
The third is that they also have so-called maxi cars. And even if you, once you book it and they say, I think it's, I don't recall exactly, but maybe 15 minutes or half an hour, I think it's half an hour. Even if they don't get any passenger, they'll take you alone. And you have to only to pay for yourself. So therefore there is reliability. Today when you hire even Ola, Uber and you say that, okay, let me not, or if I have to pay high parking, maybe I'll rely on them, but they'll cancel it.
Yeah.
And you are stuck there for half an hour, 40 minutes. So that reliability is not there, and therefore I'm forced to buy a car and drive a car. Because otherwise I'll say, okay, in the morning my husband will drop me and in the evening I'll take Ola, which I can't do.
Yeah.
So there are problems of that nature which we need to basically look into. There are no regulations that if you're constructing a building, your building material should be kept wet and it's not flowing in the air.
Yeah.
So we also have to come out with very stringent regulations. And regulations is one thing, more than that, awareness, because policing alone doesn't work. It should be willingness on my part. I should know if I won't follow these regulations, it's going to harm me and my children.
But why do you think, ma'am, there is a lack of awareness? Because every year we talk about the same thing. We know how we are suffering, we know what the problem is. But why there is a lack of awareness? I mean, is it the government to blame? Is it the citizens to blame? Like, what is the reason behind that?
Well, I'll put it this way, it's each one of us is to be blamed. And in a way, we feel as if everything is government's responsibility. And we also believe in that small act of mine is not going to make any difference. And therefore I say, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
Like, for example, like while I'm talking to you, let me ask or do a survey and ask everyone, because if we are driving big cars, you go and stand at the petrol pump, how many of us are going for unleaded petrol? We all know it, but then I'll say, oh, it's expensive. And only my act is not going to do much.
Yeah.
You talk about, even when we are talking about air, and you talk to large number of individuals, that why not to do something? And the casual attitude is, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
You know what kind of food are we eating? So that is not the answer. What we need to do, or bring awareness, that every act is going to have impact.
Yeah.
Not on me alone, on the entire ecosystem. So that is not coming. So let's not blame each other. It is more of how responsible am I?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, citizens need to take that initiative on their own part. But when it comes to government, like I'll be talking about, like right now, the government has put in place strictest rules under stage 4 of GRAP. Do you think that it is effective enough, or do you see any gaps here? Because the air problem continues to be as bad. Do you think there are gaps that needs to be addressed when it comes to these guidelines?
Well, I won't say it's as bad. It would have been worsened if those regulations were not there.
Okay.
Because if the number of diesel vehicles, trucks, they are not operating, if we are not polluting further by use of gensets and so on, it's definitely going to make a difference.
Right.
So therefore it's not as bad as it could have been.
But do you see any loopholes there, any gaps here?
I think they're doing their job quite well. I personally feel, because you see police standing everywhere, and if there is a vehicle which is not BS4, then they stop them.
Right.
So therefore, but of course, I also get requests or people speaking against it, and they say we only have one car, and if my father isn't well or my wife is expecting a child, what do I do? So therefore, there are problems of that nature as well.
Yeah.
Let's also look at that we have small and medium enterprises, and the moment you tell them that you can't use gensets or you have to move to gas gensets, do they have means to shift to that? The answer is no. So therefore, somewhere the government policy should be that it is not air pollution alone. Air pollution has impact on health of each one of us.
Yeah.
And therefore, the health burden which is going to increase, can we take care of that by giving more funds to curb air pollution?
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, where are our policies for transportation? What am I doing to reduce congestion on the roads? Look at even the red lights, they are not synchronized. Why don't we work in that direction? So what we need to do is that it's not, there will be saving of 5%, but 5% 10 times make 50%.
Yeah.
So let's work on in that direction.
Like ma'am, you spoke about transportation and you spoke about construction. These are the biggest issues that needs to be tackled to tackle air pollution in general. Apart from these, what short-term and long-term solutions do you see that would work in tackling air pollution?
Well, we are only talking of air pollution. Of course, I love to talk about pollutions of all kinds, and including water pollution, and also the way the water levels are going down in the city.
Yeah.
But when we are talking, and why I'm bringing water into picture, is because one of the best solutions is that you sprinkle water on the road so that the pollutants, they settle. It's short term, because then again, once it dries, they again will be in the air. But having said that, as I said, that the rules, or rather because it's an attitudinal change that needs to be brought, the way I look at things. And for that, we must ensure that these regulations, not as strict as GRAP 4, but then there are certain regulations that I have to follow around the year. And therefore there should be rules in terms of that on congested roads, what time we cannot drive vehicles with one passenger. And of course, other times you can, but then that can only be done if you're offering other things, like maybe even buses. You say every half an hour there will be a bus in which you have fixed seat. And in the past, contract buses, or they are still running, that worked very well.
Yeah.
But today the work environment is such that I can't say it's 9 to 5 and therefore 5 o'clock I can leave.
Yeah.
So therefore I should have option to leave at 5, 5:30, 6, 6:30.
Yeah.
So there should be buses that I have booked it. My destination is from here to here. I'll go once in the morning, I'll go back once in the evening. And they will give me a summary and I can book it any time from my computer. Let's make use of technology and we can do it very easily. Because although we are saying that, and few complexes have come up where it's both residences and offices, but then that office is for one person of the family.
Yeah.
So if your spouse has to go out, your kids have to go out, they need transportation.
Right.
So therefore, we cannot avoid looking at what are the other options.
Right.
The other is how soon we can make shift to electric cars, electric two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and so on. And again, there has to be a proper analysis because the waste which is being generated, that also creates pollution.
Even there are not enough charging stations when it comes to EVs. Yeah.
So that is for electric vehicles. There aren't enough charging stations. You are absolutely right. And we also have to look at whether the electricity is green or not. Because then you are just shifting the load from Delhi to some other city. Let's also look at, because while we are talking of these two to be the main culprits, let's also look at what are the other factors. Are we treating our waste properly? Municipal solid waste. What is happening to the landfills? They all are contributing.
Yes.
Although the proportion may vary. But since we have better opportunities, better ways of treating it, why aren't we shifting?
Right.
And that will, so many a times it doesn't make a financial case for you because you are looking in isolation.
Right.
If I set up a biogas plant, what is the capex, what is the opex, what am I getting out of it?
Right.
You may not be getting anything out of it, you are treating waste.
Right.
So then the moment you are putting your waste treatment cost, then everything becomes financially viable.
Yeah.
You put your health first, so it becomes viable. We ignore things till the time it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Like I'll give you a few cases.
Absolutely.
We are talking of the solar rooftop to be popularized and come in a big way, and as a country also we have huge targets to meet from the renewable energy. Great idea, which shows that Government of India is committed to move towards renewable energy.
Yeah.
Although there are few startup companies which have started working on how to treat the waste, but we have a long way to go.
Right.
You go and see these mountains of rubbish, which is So we are still ignoring them, and they can be treated. Let's look at even the carbon markets and see that if we treat them, what is it that we can earn in return. Trees, they don't cost you anything, and we have so much of land available. We can plant trees everywhere. They will fix carbon dioxide. Rather, what many a times we start talking about that indoor plants are not really contributing to cleaning of air. Sure, if you have a small house, that may not take care of your entire needs. It's something like when you eat food and you say it is rich in a particular vitamin, that doesn't mean that only by eating a particular fruit your RDA will be met. It will be part of it. And we always say it meets 50% of your recommended daily allowance. We never say that this is the only source. So here also plants may not be the only source, but then they will contribute something.
Yeah.
So we should get into these are the pollutants, how can I reduce them? These are the solutions which will prevent air pollution, and therefore how can I combine the two? First of all, I have to reduce pollutants, then whatever pollutants are being produced, we will take care of them by doing a particular exercise. And one of the analogy that I would like to draw your attention to, like when we are talking of energy, we are not talking of that no GHG, no greenhouse gases will be produced by an industry. We are saying net zero, which means that the industries will still be polluting. We will try to reduce pollutants, GHG emissions as much as possible. And whatever will still be produced will be taken care by my other action.
Okay.
So here, and that is what it is, net. It is not gross, it is net. So here also in case of pollution, we are talking about that pollutants will still arise.
Right.
There will be, even if you go for keeping your building material wet, building walls across it, which has started to some extent, there will be still pollutants. And for that, what are the other measures? How many trees have I planted? Am I keeping the soil wet?
Right.
Because if the air is calm, it's going to remain calm. You and I can't do much about it.
Yeah.
And whatever the topography of the city is, it's going to remain like that. But then if I'm planting trees all around, it's going to have some impact. And I have to be very choosy what to plant.
Yeah.
And again, I repeatedly say, we have to consult various departments, because whatever we are planting, it shouldn't become a weed tomorrow.
Right.
So therefore, what is it I should plant? In now how many years, what's going to happen? So taking into consideration all that, we can reduce pollution. And many cities in the world have done it, so why can't we do it?
Yeah.
We can definitely do it.
Like, we spoke about Delhi's unique topography, we spoke about its unique problems in terms of transportation, in terms of construction. But we are also seeing other cities, grappling with similar levels of air pollution. Not exactly, but yeah. For example, Mumbai. I mean, it was very, we couldn't believe that Mumbai could be so polluted. Yeah. So I want to understand, when it comes to locations, are there newer cities, towns emerging which might be, in the Delhi category in the future, and that need like immediate attention?
Yeah, you see, you have drawn example of Mumbai. And I should say till a decade ago, we always said that because of the sea, Mumbai takes care of pollution, because sea will take care of it. Why has it increased? If you have been to Mumbai in the recent past, look at the construction activities.
Yeah.
Look at the traffic jams. Like, whenever I go there, it's always a challenge. Either I'm at the airport 3 hours before my flight, or I'm running and I'm the last passenger to get into the flight. You don't know how much traffic will be there on the road. And you are spending an extra day, because you can't do morning, evening, which was never the case. So there's so much of traffic, so much of construction activity, and that is the biggest polluter.
Yeah.
So therefore, and we are like, for our country, we always say 2/3 of the infrastructure is yet to be built.
Okay.
Now, with that kind of infrastructure to be built, construction activities are going to remain.
Yeah.
And that, therefore, I always say it has to be an attitudinal change. It is not that police wala comes on so and so date and I'll just show that I'm keeping it wet, like what we have done in the past with water harvesting. You put the pipe, you don't even understand why your builder is putting a pipe. It's not for water harvesting, it's to convince the regulatory agencies.
Right.
So therefore, awareness is to be brought in your and my level. Why am I doing it? So it's not, it's not the dust. It's the small particles which are getting into your and my lungs.
Yeah.
So therefore, I have to keep it wet. So it's both regulations as well as sticking to those regulations by
Right.
general public.
The issues of Delhi might be different from that of Mumbai, but do you think there are some underlying commonalities
Absolutely.
and hence the solutions which maybe the centre or the individual state governments need to incorporate?
Yeah, so
You mentioned how.
once we know that, that is why we are doing apportionment studies for different cities and different parts of the cities.
Yeah.
Why they are important? Like suppose, and I'll take one example. Let's take example of Dholakma.
Right.
We have built excellent infrastructure, but still there is traffic jam. Let's look at, like, once we get all these figures on from AQI, we find that in many of the crossings, like IIT, whether it's IIT crossing, Dholakma, AQI is very high.
Yeah.
And that gives us that within the city also there are differences. That AQI is very high because of the traffic.
Right.
Now what is required over there therefore is, how do I smoothen that? What
Right.
kind of highways should be there? Should I broaden it? Maybe I need to break 2 buildings on either side and say that instead of 4 lane it should be 6 lane.
Yeah.
Or I also, like Google directs me that, or that I'm not supposed to take this road because of the traffic. Or government comes out that on this particular road, maybe I'll say this is the shortest route for me, why should I struggle? And they say, okay, use this road. We want to minimize the congestion, and therefore if you're using it, you'll have to pay 100 rupees.
Yeah.
So naturally we will start using the other road. So that is where it is that the studies are to be done. After those studies, the policies are to be made.
Right.
But it is not, in a way, not to harass you and me. Those should be that we are giving alternatives as well.
Right.
Metro is great. And imagine if there was no metro in Delhi, I don't know what would have happened.
Yeah.
But what needs to be done now after metro? Is there that, suppose now these metros are there, and if we see the planning in case of Japan, the train station maximum you have to walk is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
There are no these battery buses either. People walk. So there are 2 things in that society. First of all, I don't mind walking. And the other is maximum I'll have to walk is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And their roads are such that even if I have a suitcase weighing 25 kg, I can still drag that.
Yeah.
While over here, my roads are not that friendly. And therefore, and I might have to walk half an hour from one station to the other, to the place where I have to go. There might be a road in between which I don't know how to cross. So it's not safe for me either.
Right.
So for long term, or if not long term, maybe for city like Delhi, it's going to take us much longer. But the new metros which are now developing, let's work on that. Let's make them people friendly. And there should be regulations, there should be studies on which basis we are planning that.
Yeah.
Let's set up at least 2 cities where we say, or we started with the smart city initiative. Few things we have done exceedingly well, but there are few where we could have done better. And if we show that this is how the new city should look like, I think we can win this battle.
I mean, early in our conversation, you spoke about how China handled this issue when it comes to Beijing. I mean, it was a similar issue there. You also spoke about the US, I mean, how they have, in a way, they are tackling air pollution. Like, if we look at global examples, like what is there for us to learn from countries who have specifically targeted their approach towards tackling air pollution?
There won't be one country, I'll put it this way, because so many countries have used different innovative methods.
But some countries which you think have done it, or specific strategies they have adopted which completely stood out?
Yeah, so the green wall in China, that stood out.
Yeah.
And the different taxation for single used cars, single person used cars versus otherwise.
Right.
High taxation during peak hours. So these are the things from different parts of the world which we can study and adopt to our conditions.
Right. You also mentioned about the apportionment studies that you do. I want to understand TERI's work in the realm of air pollution and your collaboration with local bodies, with regional governments and with the centre in the realm of air pollution.
In fact, we worked, and I should say that international organizations are also very serious in that. We worked with the Swiss Development Corporation and World Bank. And the states where we have worked, of course, there are studies done for Delhi, but we also work for far off places like Kanpur, Lucknow, Pune, few other cities. So what we have done is that what is it in different months, what are the pollutants, so characterize them.
Right.
And how can we control them? Because ultimately you should understand that is it coming from transport, is it coming from construction, is there something else, is it coming from the industry? So depending on that, once you have that data, then you can develop strategies to control it. And all this is funded by an organization, but then implementation is through the state government. And Ministry of Environment and Forest, few days back I attended a meeting there, in various municipalities. They also projected their success stories.
Right.
So like in Bareilly, there was one particular crossing where air pollution was very high. And then it is that, what is it they have done, like what kind of vehicles, because it also happens especially in small towns. You have different kind of vehicles, right, from, I should say, bullock cart to your SUVs running on the same road. And therefore you cannot even drive at a fast speed. So therefore what measures they have taken. There is another study which TERI had done, because there is also many a times you would cry about that for widening the highway you have cut down so many trees. But then you have to look into that, yes, those trees were cut. And I'm not denying trees and ecosystem in itself. But then we also have to look into what is happening with those emissions. What will happen to climate change? What's going to happen to you? Your and my lungs. And then it is that maybe widening is the best option. Replant trees so that in next 10 years those trees are as big as what you have cut. But then your air pollution has reduced drastically by taking those measures. So therefore repeatedly I'm saying you need to research. Each city is different. The pollution is being caused, these are the major categories, but what is contributing how much, it varies from city to city. So you look at different cities, and therefore once you have this data, you need to look into that what was tried elsewhere. And another thing, what we are calling as living labs, because whatever you do may not be successful, there will be failures. But you have to put those failures also, so that don't expect another city to do the same mistake. You are saying this was tried, this was the reason for the failure. If you want to attempt it, take care or solve this gap before you get into it. So all this data and living labs are developed in consultation with the municipalities. So municipalities also know very well what is successful, what is expected out of them, what is expected from the stakeholders. So that's how they do it.
So in a way, like if I'm putting it right, the problems are localized and so should be the solutions when it comes to air pollution. Am I right in like encapsulating it like that?
Partially right, but I'll say that the larger policies, they have to come from the center. Because otherwise what states will say, like what is happening today, like if you're talking of hybrid vehicles, government of Delhi doesn't offer you any subsidy and UP government does. So what people are trying to do is that, let me buy the vehicle. Do you have any address in UP? Buy your vehicle there. We don't want to get into that kind of a thing. So what we actually want to do is, there should be similar regulations. Like, I'll give you another example. Like the diesel car, 10-year-old diesel cars have been banned in Delhi. And there is no ban in Mumbai. So what is happening is that our 10-year-old cars are being sold in Mumbai, and here is same. So therefore, it is not that we are cleaning, it is not serving the purpose with which that regulation was made. So therefore, the regulations are to be made at the center level, but then we have to adopt them to the city, because there are going to be differences. It's not one shoe fits all, but we all have to wear a shoe.